So much of the white media, in fact, practically all of the white media, is about manipulation and control. It is not about people expressing what they think and believe. It is about the media owners, the people who own the media, dictating to you what you think and believe. Oh, you just think you want reparations. You actually don't want that. What you want is a pat on the head, and you want Joe Biden to apologize for all the racist stuff that he's done. That's what you really want. Yeah, that's what I really want. I don't want reparations. That's what they're about. Look at this headline. Twitter users don't know how to feel about the new trend. Actually, Twitter users know exactly how they feel about it. Is the white media telling you, no, you're actually confused. You don't know how you feel about this. You're confused. Well, looking at this gentleman here, he's the one who seems to be a little out of sorts. He's the one who seems to be confused. The rest of us are 100% rock solid on the issues and where we stand on the issues, especially when it comes to menswear, because we understand that what a man puts on, that's him putting on his uniform and saying, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. When a man puts on the uniform of a soldier, what he says is, I stand for war. When a man puts on the uniform of a corporate executive, he says, I stand for business. So what does it mean when you have a man who puts on the uniform that's always worn by a woman? What does that say? And not just the uniform of a woman, but the uniform of a woman who's trying to attract sexual attention. The kind of clothing that's normally worn by hood rats at the Walmart. Family, we need to learn to recognize when something is grassroots, which means it comes from us. There is no other definition of grassroots. And when something is astroturf, which means it comes from outside of the black community. There's the only time that they ever talk about black people, especially black men. The only time that they have something to say in the white media that isn't an attack is whenever they feel that black men are suitably entertaining and amusing white power, or whenever they feel like they can use and abuse us for the sake of augmenting their own numbers for whatever inane issue or movement they want to push. That's how white power operates. They don't mention black people under any other context. And we have been conditioned that we're being attacked by the white media 24/7. So if they say something about us that isn't an attack, why to us, that's high praise. And I'm telling you, that ain't the business. And that's what you see going on with this whole gender bending thing. Now, if you're a guy who decides that he wants to run around in a hoop skirt, well, I guess that's your own affair, but I'm not going to be somebody who sits here and pretends as if I don't see what's going on here. Oh, Professor BlackTruth, you're casting aspersions. No, this is pattern recognition. Because I can tell you right now, the white media damn sure wouldn't be lauding Justin Bieber and trying to tell everybody, oh, how great Justin Bieber's running around in a dress like they did with Jaden Smith. They wouldn't be giving that wall-to-wall coverage. No, it seems the only time that a man running around wearing women's clothing is seen as acceptable, and it's also seen as something that needs to be emulated, and this is something that the masses should see. Oh, this is groundbreaking. This is barrier breaking. Well, if they can put a black man out there for it, which lets you know something. This ain't about gender. This is about race. Now, we're going to go ahead and get a little bit in the weeds here, but it's something that needs to be said. Being a Gen Xer, I remember how, especially in the 1980s, you would have movies and TV shows and such showing men, particularly football players, who would be running around with crop tops, basically where the bottom of the shirt is missing. Apparently, that has to do something with letting heat escape or what have you, but look, I ain't silly enough to overlook the fact that if you look at movies like Rocky and if you look at the break-in movies and such, if you look at who it was who the white media showed the most running around in crop tops, it was usually black males who they'd have out there doing it the most. Oh yeah, sure. You did have Bruce Jenner, who was clearly transitioning at the time. He was running around in a crop top. He was also running around some Daisy Dukes. I'll let you go ahead and put two and two together on that one. But the point that I'm trying to make is there is a world of difference between some guys who are wearing metrosexual wear, and then you got guys who are wearing straight up female outfits. You are not going to tell me that some football player in the 80s who's wearing half a shirt is somehow the exact same thing as a male who is running around with a shirt that is practically gone from the nipples down, that's something that's cut so that his freaking nipples are showing. Why the world would any man be looking at that and going, oh yeah, this is something I would wear, because no woman would wear it? Not outside of a strip club anyway. And the guys running around in a tube top? No, this kind of thing is social engineering, but it's social engineering for an ethnic agenda. And the agenda is we want this to be pushed toward a certain type of people. Now, here's something you need to understand when it comes to advertising. When it comes to advertising, they will use individuals in their commercials or in their billboard or magazine ads who look like or fit the profile of whomever their target demographic is. Whomever it is who they think is most likely to buy it, whomever it is that they're hoping to sell to, that's the kind of person who they're going to put in their advertisements, in the visuals for it. Because they want the potential customer to literally see themselves. There's a reason why whenever you see the big pickup truck commercials, they always got some white guy who looks like he came fresh from the sawdust joint or the lumber yard or wherever. That's the whole point. This is for the white man who's over at the job site, or the white man who's at the factory, or this is for the white man taking the wife and 2.3 kids to the lake. That's what they want. They want the white guys, because it's mostly white guys who they're hoping to sell it to. Oh, this is going to be very helpful for you to be moving lumber around the yard or be moving some stuff, and we want you to be able to see yourself behind the wheel, and that's what they do. And when it comes to tennis shoes, they make sure to put some black males in there because that's who they're hoping to sell them to. And when it comes to cleaning products and such, they have a woman there because that's who they're hoping to sell it to. That's how it works. You need to understand that it's no accident that when it comes to the white media presenting this kind of fare, and make no mistake, that's exactly what this is. This is an advertisement. It's an advertisement for you should try the LGBT lifestyle. And this is particularly dangerous in the black community because after 3 generations of black males being raised in single mother homes, what happens is there is a pre-programming that you're supposed to bend the knee for the matriarchy. If women say that they approve of something, you're supposed to break your neck in order to emulate that. And if they say that they don't like something, such and such over there, he's square or he's corny or he's this, that, and a third, well, you want to stay away from that. So what happens when the white media says that you should have black males running around wearing the uniform of what's supposed to be black females, and not just black females, but black females who are out there trying to catch? Particularly a black female who looks like she should be out there on the track, on the strip, wearing attention-getting garb. That's what's going on here. And it's particularly galling to me because in Louisiana, you had a case where there was a young black man who was murdered by the police. And the reason why was they said that his pants were too low, so they shot him to death. Oh, your pants are sagging, so we got to kill you. Well, we need to rationalize that because after all, sagging pants, isn't that the criminal element? Now you got these white boys who are running around their freaking skateboards. They got sagging pants, so they're going to get shot next, right? No, because that's not what it's about. It's about justifying the murder of black people, particularly black men, which would have happened under any circumstances, no matter what his clothing was. Any excuse will do, or no excuse whatsoever. But for the people, the lame brains out there, the morons who try to make it sound like, well, the whole sagging thing, that did come out of prison culture, And, well, a lot of these black males running around with their pants down, these guys don't even know that this comes out of prison culture, and it was basically a way to say that homosexual males behind bars were advertising that they were looking to get with somebody. Well, in that case, then what the heck do you call this? Yeah, you see, that's what's going on here. This is a double standard, but under white supremacy, double standards, triple standards, no standards, it's all the same thing. This is what's getting pushed out there, and you better understand something. The audience for this is partially black males. It's basically a way to say this kind of clothing is available, but a large part of it is aimed at black females. No different than with skinny jeans. You had all those black guys who thought that it was cute to run around in skinny jeans because that's how the white media, that's how white power does a type of social engineering bank shot. They're always making sure that they're playing an angle, no pun intended. But that's the way that these kind of things operate. What happens is male fashion is in large part, for a certain segment of males, it's driven by what they think is going to be attractive to females. So please don't think that the white media is not looking and going. There's going to be social pressure that comes at a lot of males from the female contingent if we play this the right way. And they've had a lot of practice when it comes to playing this the right way. It's aimed at them for the sake of, wouldn't you like it if the guy who you were around, usually some Pookie or Ray Ray, who's depending on his girlfriend for everything, or he really has no prospects because he doesn't have anything resembling drive, nothing resembling personality, nothing resembling character. So he's looking for someone to glom onto. And this is the guy who's going to be some couch surfing loser somewhere. So he needs some female who's going to be taking care of him. And so she gets to treat him like her pet poodle, and she has him run around this crap. Or God forbid, you run into some Charlize Theron or some Charlize Theron wannabe who decides that, well, wouldn't it be a good idea for her son to explore his feminine side? And the white media will co-sign that all the live long day. Because the only acceptable definition of black masculinity is emasculated. That's the only acceptable version of it. And that's what you see being pushed here. Images are how the white media operates. Dr. John Henrik Clarke told you all about that 30 plus years ago. The white media is out to control image. If they can control how you see yourself, then they can control what you do about yourself. And he was absolutely right. Human beings, especially males, they take in fully 80% of their data through their eyes. They don't even bother to open their mouths to ask any questions. They don't bother to test anything with their other senses. They just take it at face value. And if you have the white media that is attempting to push this, forget about subculture, this uber culture of black men need to be running around wearing women's clothing, and that we want black men to do this. We're not going to be pushing this with any blonde hair, blue-eyed white kids. We're not with the halter tops and the tube tops. Well, it's a thing, all right. Sure, men wearing tube tops, that's a thing, but only if they're black men running around with dreads. Only if they're black men. White men, well, Bruce Jenner may have been the one who broke barriers on that one, but we don't want to see that become habit forming. So why is one being pushed from the rafters and the other one ain't? It's no accident that it was a black male model who they chose to use for this little psychological warfare campaign. That's no accident. Because they damn sure weren't going to put a white one out there and say, we want to make sure that you are blitzed with this. This is deliberate. This is social engineering. And it's social engineering for the sake of trying to confuse the internal politics of the black community. If the black community says we're going to go in this direction because we want to, that's one thing. But this didn't come from us. This came from the white media, came from white corporations, and you better believe that it came from white power. We didn't generate this. This didn't come from us. And yet you got the white media trying to push it on us. And when you say, wait a minute here, we're only going to adopt the mores and traditions and culture and the behavior that come from us, then all of a sudden it's going to be, you're homophobic. That's supposed to be them. That's a word that's supposed to be giving them permission to be saying, okay, now we have a political pretext for how we're going to attack you or how we're going to censor you. If you're not willing to accept us emasculating the black male personality, to emasculate black masculinity, if you're going to stand against that, then we're going to give ourselves permission to come at you. We're going to say homophobic, and that is going to be entree to use every other means. It's going to be everything, including whether or not we can have you shot for it. We want you to understand that we're going to be emasculating black men, and we're going to be attacking the black male character, and we want you to know that if you even say anything against it, there's going to be economic violence used against you. There's going to be social violence used against you. There's going to be political violence used against you. Anyone who says that they stand with you or supports you or refuses to condemn you because you refuse to knuckle under, well, we're going to be attacking all of you. We want you to know you're under attack if you don't endorse this. I have said before and will continue to say that in too many cases, when it comes to the alternative lifestyles, there has always been a strong element of coercion behind it. I pointed out how you can go all the way back to the Bible with that. Even if you want to believe that the Bible is a book of fables, you got to agree that it was a book of fables that somebody wrote with the expectation that people would believe what was in these fables, that people would be able to connect with it or otherwise identify with it. And you go to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, you had the angels who showed up in Lot's house, and next thing you know, here come a whole bunch of the local males who are going, we see some new fish in the yard. Send them out here. And when Lot said, hey, I know how y'all get down. Let me send my daughters out here. They're a couple of skanks anyway. I'm sure you guys wouldn't mind some quality time with them. They said, no, we didn't say the females. We said those two dudes in there. You better send them out. Next thing you know, they started banging on the doors. How many times has it been that you have somebody who is part of the alternative lifestyle sphere, and next thing you know, if you talk to them long enough, they always talk about how they were sexually abused. Milo Snuffleupagus finally came up with the admission. Oprah Winfrey came up with the admission. Tyler Perry came up with the admission. Recently, Ellen DeGeneres came up with the admission. That is no accident, by the way. That is not coincidence. There has always been a strong element of coercion that goes along with this alternative lifestyle thing. There's always been a strong element of, in too many cases, there's always going to be a couple of exceptions. But as a rule, you damn well better believe, yes, there usually is some sort of sexual abuse at an early age. And what happened was you got these kids who were exposed to something that they absolutely were not equipped for. They didn't feel like they had anybody to go to. And what happened was they wound up becoming involved in something that they didn't completely understand. That was not entirely by choice, if by choice at all. But that's something you're not supposed to say. You're not supposed to point that out. You're not supposed to say that maybe, just maybe, there is a stronger component of environmental pressure and influence on the alternative lifestyle than there is any sort of natural, or whatever you want to call it, genetic predisposition toward it. I still have yet for anyone to show me the gay gene. Still waiting on that one. Well, I'm sure they'll get around to it sooner or later. But the point that I'm trying to make, family, is this kind of stuff here that is being pushed by the white media, that's being pushed by icy pale forces behind the scenes, this is meant as a form of social engineering of the black community. What's supposed to be happening, you're supposed to have a bunch of black females who see this and go, ooh, he seems just like one of the girls. And truth be told, there are just too many black females who like the idea that a guy basically emasculates himself. To her, that's the same as him chopping off his manhood and presenting it to her and saying, basically, I am unworthy, and they like that. That's the kind of thing that just tingles their nether regions, the idea of a black male emasculating himself, because to her, that's power tripping. He wants to be one of the girls so badly that he's willing to just basically emasculate himself. And to them, this would be verification of that. So you better believe, there's going to be a lot of black females out there encouraging this. And because you got a lot of black males raised in single mother homes, who the principles of manhood are not merely foreign to them, they are anathema to them. What's going to occur in too many cases is there will indeed be some weak-willed, weak-minded, spineless jellyfish out there who will do anything to get a pat on the head from the opposite sex, including try to basically be a de facto member of the opposite sex, if only in attire. So that's what's going on here. All of this freaking gender bending, what it basically says is there are no standards anymore. Anything goes. So everything went. This is not order. This is not anyone making a decision or a choice. This is the media, which is being backed up by the society and being backed up by certain political actors. And political actors not meaning merely those who are in elected office, but political meaning those who are interested in trying to exercise power and use their power to manipulate you. That's what I mean by political. Political in the pure sense of the term, which means the distribution of power. But you're going to be having certain groups who make it very clear that you better not say there's anything wrong with this. And especially if you're black, you better not say there's anything wrong with this. They're going to bring down hellfire on you if you question this. Don't be surprised when you have schools, because that's where this is going, when you have schools whose dress code allows for black males to come to school wearing crop tops and such. Now, they won't be letting the girls do that, but it'll be permissible for the boys to do it. And especially when it comes to athletics, when it comes to the gathering of young people, which is where the feminine and masculine principles are supposed to be given vent so that they can develop properly. You have the boys doing the athletic stuff and you have the girls cheering them on, because that is the natural way that male and female are supposed to be working together. He is the one who is supposed to be pulling this wagon. He's supposed to be one leading the charge, and she's supposed to be cheering him every step of the way. We've been doing it ass backwards for the last 60 years, and we have reaped the horrifying and catastrophic results. But at least when they're young, kids get the idea that, yes, the male's supposed to be out there doing the leading. He's supposed to be the one saying, everybody form on me. Except what's going to be happening now is, under the guise of sports, you better believe there are going to be schools and such that are going to be showing the males running around wearing this kind of stuff. And the girls are going to be more interested in seeing that the boys are doing this. Oh, this is so different. Oh, this is so bizarre. This is so unusual. That's how it's going to be forming itself. Understand, something like this could never, ever, ever take hold unless there is a predetermined, predisposed element within the black community willing to accept it, willing to support it. There must be full-throated opposition to this manipulation that's going on here. This didn't come from us. This was not something that we dreamt up. This was not something that we came up with. This is not an expression of self-determination by the black community. This is the white media and their backers in corporate America and around the world saying we're going to define what qualifies as black masculinity. Why, there's many definitions, just a universe of definitions of masculinity. Why, everything is masculine, which of course means that nothing is masculine. And that means that the definition of masculinity is obliterated if we allow this to happen. And this is not new. This is something that's been going on for a while. We've already seen the definition of womanhood be completely and thoroughly obliterated, which is what's been going on for the longest time. It seems that barely a week can pass by without us hearing about some athletes, even in high school, who are part of this. Or you find some actors on television. Oh, we're celebrating the first transgender actor. You thought that it was a woman, but she was born as a man, etc., etc. Every time you look up, whenever they're celebrating some transgender politician who's won office, what a surprise. It's always a man who's transitioned to be a woman. Have you noticed that? Have you caught on to that particular trend? They've made it where anyone and everyone gets to claim that they're a woman. And of course, if everyone's a woman, then no one is a woman. What qualifies as womanhood? Well, anything does, anything at all. But there happened to be a cultural backlash that white supremacy was expecting that didn't materialize when they started encroaching on womanhood. When they started just bums rushing it and violating the definition of womanhood, they were anticipating that there would be a huge pushback, but it never materialized. And now that they've gotten through prostituting and just violating the definition of womanhood, they're like, okay, we've already taken care of half of the equation. Now it's time to sharpen our knives and go after the other half. And that's what you see happening here. Oprah Winfrey didn't question this encroachment on womanhood. Then again, why would she? Ellen DeGeneres didn't question it. None of the bootlicks working for the white media questioned it. Nobody even examined it. They just accepted it whole hog. And that's the reason why we saw the basic definition of womanhood get trounced upon. It's a matter of if you're a woman born female, you really got nothing to say at this point. On what grounds are you going to say that, wait a minute, this person over here who's claiming to be a woman, that he just figured out now that he's a woman, wait a minute here. You're going to be taking things that ordinarily would be going to women, and you're going to be giving it to men who basically say I should be considered a woman because I identify myself as one? There happen to be some feminists who at least have an understanding of the principles of power, and they're looking and going, wait a minute here. We couldn't help but notice how lopsided this is. There seems to be some sort of agenda at work here, and in large part, they're right. But the problem is they waited too long. They didn't push back in the early stages. Whenever white power decided to do the next encroachment on the definition of womanhood, they didn't push back hard. They didn't make it clear, nah, you're not going any farther than this. And that's why white supremacy was able to completely overrun them. And that failure to react, that failure to call it out when it first started, that set the stage for everything else that has followed since. Because of the fact that women did not take a bold stand and say, wait a minute, there's a definition of womanhood. There are principles that have to be maintained. And no, we're not circling the wagon for every Tamika, Jane, and Harriet out there who decides that she wants to do something. No, if you're off code, then you're on your own. And as a result, because there was no definition of womanhood that the line was held on, well, now we got a situation where even people who are men can say, I'm one too. And now you have white power using the white media as its spearhead, attempting to soften us up to see if whether or not they can go 2 for 2. And that's the question they're asking. Hey, are you going to allow this to happen as well? Is this going to go on too now? You have people who are antagonistic toward black people. You have individuals who are hostile toward black people. You have individuals who have used all the power at their disposal at the corporate level, at the media level, at the political level, and every other level there is in order to attack black people. And as it pertains to black masculinity, these people hate black masculinity. Black masculinity has done nothing to them. It has only benefited them, and yet they hate it regardless. And these people who are antagonistic toward us, who are hostile toward us, who are hateful toward us, who are violent toward us, they are now taking it upon themselves that they're going to give themselves permission to define black masculinity. They hate black masculinity. They spit on black masculinity. They are intimidated by black masculinity because it makes them feel inferior, but they reserve the right to define black masculinity. The definition of masculinity, particularly black masculinity, that is not something that's up for fiat. That is not something that we're going to take an opinion poll from, and we're going to make sure that it's a definition that appeals to every sort of high-powered media outlet out there that has their own agenda. The definition of black masculinity is not going to be held hostage to any sort of social shaming. The definition is what it is, and we're not concerned with whether or not it pleases every single constituency, every single group out there who has their own ideas about what black men are and ought to be. A definition that came from some white think tank, or came from some white Madison Avenue PR firm, or came from some white corporation, or came from some white studio executive, or some sort of white clothing label executive, that's not a definition that came from us. And hence it's not a definition that's going to be allowed to be pasted onto us. Nobody is going to come up to us and dictate to us what our identity is, who we are, how we ought to be. No one's going to come up to us and tell us what it is that we're going to be doing. And we're not going to be intimidated. We are not going to be coerced. We are not going to be pushed around. And we're not going to have anybody wag their finger in front of us and try to shame us into it. You're not going to shame me into taking on a definition of myself or masculinity or black manhood that somebody who ain't got a damn thing to do with us, has never helped us, doesn't do anything to support us, only tries to undermine and harm us. And now they're coming up to us saying, hey, we've come up with a brand new definition of black masculinity for you. Hey, this is going to be the hip, new, trendy, cool thing for black men. Not even. Not even. We're supposed to have a situation where apparently we have people who are free to do as their conscience dictates. Yeah, but what they're not free to do, what you're not doing, is seeing the white media promoting anything having to do with black empowerment. That happens to be one choice that the white media doesn't endorse. Nah, they're not promoting black empowerment. That's a decision that they prefer not to put on the headlines. Nobody is asking whether none of the white media's so-called coverage, which is nothing more than typical white media cover up, none of it has anything to say about what deleterious effects, if any, this could have. Or if you have these males who are running around wearing women's clothing, why doesn't that diminish and otherwise take away from women? Because let's be honest here, folks. If you got men who are calling themselves wearing women's clothing and taking on the airs of women, well, what do you think happens with the females? What happens with them is they wind up having to go over the top to try to figure out, okay, what do I have as a woman? What can I do as a woman that would distinguish me from these males who are running around in dresses and putting on all the airs of a female? It's like something that Dr. Josephine Yakinen said almost 40 years ago, talking about the development, quote unquote, of Europe thousands of years ago. What you had was you had a bunch of males in Europe who had no resources. They wanted to vent their sexual impulses, but they understood that doing it with females would result in yet another mouth that they couldn't feed because they had no resources. So what happened was you had a bunch of dudes turn into each other. And what happens with the women under those circumstances? Well, what happens with them is they wind up having to try to figure out, how do you get a man's attention when he's been spending a long time conditioning himself to stay away from women because he doesn't have the resources necessary to provide for them? What happens? Well, what happens is you get this juvenile hyper obsession with sex. That's what you get. What you get is a bunch of females who every time you look up, everything has to be sold using a woman who's running around with barely any clothing on at all. It doesn't matter if you're selling a car, if you're selling Budweiser beer, or if you're selling a hamburger. You got to make sure that there's some scantily clad female there because, well, she's trying to do something that she hopes he can't. That's the impact that it has whenever you create a permissive social environment that allows men to be able to encroach upon what is ordinarily the natural domain of women. And when it comes to showing flesh, keep in mind that's always been a taboo in the society, or at least something the societies have not necessarily smiled upon. And the reason happens to be you don't want a woman to be getting the idea that the right way for her to get attention is by showing off her body. You don't want her doing that. Because what you are doing is you are ingraining prostitution into the social fabric. Instead of the woman just being herself, instead it's a matter of you only have value to the extent that you can sexually entice. That's called a whore. And you definitely don't want men taking on that aspect, because with a man, he is not supposed to be selling his body at all, and he's definitely not supposed to be coming to the females. And well, the thing that I'm bringing to the table in a relationship happens to be my body. What he's supposed to be bringing is resources, knowledge. He's supposed to be bringing a mind for the future, how to protect and provide for those in his circle. That's what he's supposed to be bringing. He ain't supposed to be coming up to her saying, and now obviously you don't want the dude looking like the Michelin Man. But at the other end of the spectrum, you don't want a man who's so vain, a man who is so taken with himself that as far as he's concerned, the thing he's bringing to her is, hey, take a look at my washboard abs, because that's all I'm bringing. Protection, provision. Well, I look to the woman. I don't mind if the woman takes care of me. That way I got more time for Xbox. And that's how it turns out with these guys. What he's bringing is that, ooh, baby, I bet you he gets it done in the bedroom. Yeah, he might get, for the sake of argument, let's go ahead and say, yeah, he gets it done in the bedroom, but I bet you he won't be getting it done anywhere else. Men take the sexual energy that they might have and they focus it in the direction of resources. They focus it in the direction of trying to get what they need in order to take care of themselves and have a sufficient surplus to take care of those around them. A male is not supposed to be constantly indulging his sexual impulse or trying to find a way to get you on that crap too. Because a guy who does that, he's a male whore. A guy who does that is a male slut. And you take a look at these images. These are not the images of a male who's going places. These are not the images of a male who is concerned with protecting and providing and leading. These are the images of a male who's going to be turned up at the club. These are the images of a male who is never going to grow up. And if he never grows up, that also means that he cannot rise. So he's going to be at the bottom and you're going to be stuck right alongside him. Yeah, the people who put this stuff out here, they know exactly what they're doing because they do not push this on the white community. They don't push this on the Asian community. They don't push this on the Hispanic one. They push it specifically at black people. They want black people to be the face of this gender bending thing. And nobody ever asks, does this in a society, in a world that is overwhelmingly heterosexual, what kind of confusion does gender bending bring about? Doesn't that confuse a heterosexual society? No, there's room for all of it. In that case, then how come everybody's looking and going, we're not sure what the hell to make of this thing? Because there happens to be an agenda at work. If you take a look at the people who happen to be the publishers of these magazines, who happen to be the producers of these TV shows and the heads of these studios, you find a disproportionate number of alternative lifestyle people there. And a lot of them who have spent a lot of years, basically, if they're not on the job, they are spending their time over at the bathhouse or at the private club or what have you. And to them, that is not merely a fact of life, it's a way of life. So the kind of stuff that normally only took place in back rooms or in New York sex parlors, sex dungeons, now this stuff is starting to be pushed in the society in general. The kind of stuff that used to be only took place at secret gatherings that nobody knew about, and you had to know the password, and you had to already be well known by the people before they even consider letting you into those kind of circles. Well, not anymore. What's happening is now these people who previously had done all this stuff behind closed doors, the kind of San Francisco bathhouse culture that previously had been secreted and nobody knew about, and nobody was putting out there because they knew how the society would react. Well, now as far as they're concerned, hey, we're going to be pushing this. And more importantly than that, we're going to be making it where everyone is required to do this. Expect to see this pushed on young people, and expect the same folks whose heads explode if they see some girl come to school whose dress is an inch above her knees. Expect these same folks, they'll be seeing boys sitting in class wearing tube tops, and they're going to be making excuses for it, and they're going to have boys on the sports teams or other venues in schools wearing this kind of attire, and there's going to be tons of excuses for it. There's a program at work here, folks. There's an agenda that's playing itself out. Once again, white power is testing us. They've seen in the past that, well, we chose the wrong folk with some of these black celebrities. The black celebrities are no longer the golden blackjack they used to be. This black empowerment thing is starting to inoculate the black masses against that garbage. So they don't have the kind of traction that they used to. They're not as useful to us. That's why you don't see them out here trying to push some celebrity or some rapper or some actor with this. Instead, it's a matter of, okay, well, we're just going to decide to come around the side. We can't come straight up the middle, so we're going to go ahead and try a lateral attack instead. They're testing us to see what happens. Will there be enough of us who have decided that, well, we can go ahead and play footsie with some of white supremacy's psychological warfare attacks? It's not so bad if we do that. We'll let white supremacy think for us, and we'll let white supremacy suggest and push all sorts of things in the black community that we didn't come up with and things that we are not in support of. But if they say that we should, then we're going to do it. And yeah, that's fine. Is that the people we're going to be? Or are we going to be the people who say, you know what? We understand when somebody's trying to manipulate us. And no, that is not okay.